You can do one of two things. You can become a victim, or you can be the hero. You choose. So the last thing is you're really the author of how your life's going to go. There's going to be different roads that come along. There's going to be different obstacles, different bumps, but you're holding the pen in your hand. You're going to have the choice in the next moment. You can do one of two things. You can become a victim, or you can be the hero. You choose. The path is yours. Sometimes you have to pave it. Sometimes it's not already laid out for you. But is it worth it? That's the question. So I got 15 minutes. If there's any questions, I want to stick around and just answer a few questions. But I just wanted to share with you some of the basic things that I think have helped me to live a workable life, to be happy in my life. And if it's valuable for you, try it on, see how it's useful. But more than anything, remember, producers create more value than they consume. Consumers take more value than they create. If you're going to be self-reliant, if you're going to live a workable life, if you're going to be extraordinary, if you're going to leave a legacy, it's only if you commit to being a producer and living in the abundance paradigm. Questions? Yeah?
How do you view risk in your life?
Well, risk is something that's there, but if it is there, I view it as something to continue to educate myself, to continue to do due diligence, but not something to stop me based upon what others perceive as risk. See, general population and social agreement is that being an entrepreneur would be risky. But to me, I'll even make this statement. There are no even risky investments, only risky investors. It's about people. It's about your own situation. You know, think about a hammer. A hammer in my hands would be useless because I'm not very crafty with the hammer. A hammer in a skilled carpenter's hands could be a very useful tool, and a hammer in a child's hands could be a detrimental tool. It all depends on the person whether that was valuable or not. So to me, when someone else tells me something is risky, from their perspective it is. But based upon my education and what I'm willing to do about it, if I can incorporate my human life value and my characteristics and my abilities into something, that's one of the best ways I can mitigate risk. That's one of the best ways I can reduce risk. But as a producer, all consumers are going to see what producers do as risky. Because as a producer, what I do first is believe. Whether it exists in the marketplace or not, I say, is it possible? And I believe anything is possible. So anything's possible. Then I would say, okay, if it's possible, what could I do to make it probable? What could I do to create favorable circumstances? And a lot of that is, I have to start paying for the education. I have to get other experts involved. I have to spend money on it. I don't go into it blindly. And then I continue to say, how can I create the most value in this situation for the most people? And I have a whole system of 10 questions that as I go through the 10 questions, I quantify these questions, 0 to 5. Now, this isn't like a risk analysis where someone would say, hey, I believe high risk equals high return. I think that's a lie. High risk doesn't equal high return. If it were true, we would buy lottery tickets and we'd be wealthy. That's the highest risk I could think of. I would never raise my kid on the philosophy of high risk equals high return. Like, oh, I just won't watch him and he'll figure out more things because that's risky. Now, see, if a financial thing doesn't make sense or whatever else would be perceived to be risky doesn't make sense in the regular application of life, or if I move it to the nth degree, then I would consider it not viable or not aligned with principle. But if something is deemed to be risky because it's just never happened before, like think about it. Someone creating an airplane, that was risky. But look at all that we've done to manage that risk over time, to mitigate it, to create contingencies, to bring in expertise. All that took a multitude of people, a lot of research, a lot of human life value, but it became possible. But before flight was ever possible, someone had to imagine it first. So it's usually our imagination that people would consider risky, but it's what we do to implement that imagination and the people that are involved with it that would make it whether it's risky or not risky. So you could have the exact same investment, the same type of idea coming from two different people, and in one it would be completely risky, and in the other it would be very little risk at all. But anyone in the scarcity paradigm is going to pose risk to any investment, for sure, or any situation in life. Because anytime you're going by fear of loss, anytime you believe, there's a dilemma there because you think that doing well is a bad thing, I mean, you could see that there's going to be sabotage in there somewhere, right? So the biggest things I invest in right now are my own intellectual property, my own businesses, where I see that being the least risk. I don't invest in a lot of products right now. Will I down the road? Yeah. Did I before? Yeah. But right now, I'm closing a real estate deal right now, and I thought, why would I invest this back into real estate if I can invest it into a book that I changed the title of my book. It's called Killing Sacred Cows, which is maybe a little bit of a weird title. But people, see, in social agreements and social beliefs, there are sacred cows. People don't want to even talk about it or look at it. It's just tradition. But it's the very thing that holds people back from happiness. So Killing Sacred Cows is about defeating those myths and subtle lies so that people can have prosperity. And so I thought, why not invest all that money in my book? Why not invest it in marketing that? What are the external benefits of that? What would that do to me as a speaker and being able to charge to speak? What would that do to my other businesses and getting the message out there that's different than most of what's being perpetuated out there? What would, I start thinking about those returns. And so what I do is I hired a PR firm. I started to brainstorm ideas around it. So I didn't just throw the investment. I created a whole plan to what I was going to do to make that as effective as possible. And then I built as many contingencies in place that I could possibly think of in the moment. But even if something happens that I didn't prepare for, I'm passionate about it. So I'm going to stay engaged in it. Where I have investments that I'm like, I got to do something about that because I got to be a steward, but I don't have any passion for it, So in my mind, it's transformed a little bit. Yep. Yeah.
What are some books that you would recommend to read that kind of encourage this mindset?
As a Man Thinketh is a good book. Man's Search for Meaning is a good book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a good book. Good to Great is another good book. Go to producerrevolution.com and go to the bookstore. There's a ton of books on there. Yeah.
I'm sincerely interested in how guys like yourself get going. What were you doing that first got you going towards success? I mean, as far as financially.
I think when I was 10 or so, somewhere someone put a message in my mind that I wanted to create more for my community than I took from it. That was a defining moment for me. Then I was involved in sports, and I thought I would like to make some additional money when I was 15. And so I went and talked to my dad about it, and he started bringing vehicles home from the mine, and I would clean them, and I'd get paid for that. And my mom worked at a credit union, so I started cleaning the repossessed vehicles there, and that's how I created a whole business for the entrepreneurial thing. I mean, it was labor. I had to do the work, but I eventually hired employees while I was still in high school. I started presenting on it, actually presenting that business to win money for presenting it, helped me refine some of my presentation skills, started having me, start doing income statements and balance sheets at an early age so I could, talk about the financials. That was a great education because it had real application at that moment. And then even just going to a university like here was awesome because I would go talk to my professors. I had a personal relationship with them, so I could talk about things outside the classroom that impacted my life and my business and the things that I was doing. So I still have great friends that are professors here and people that I keep in touch with and that have influenced my life that still carry through to this day. So once again, people are assets. It's not about the letter grade that you get here. That is part of it. That shows that you're willing to learn. That shows that you're capable of memorizing and doing certain things. But what do you do about the relationships you develop here? The people I met at SUU that I still keep in touch with, we had a softball team that was over 90% people from SUU up in Salt Lake. We took first 2 years in a row, by the way. And so I associate with them. I talk to them. Some of my first clients were professors, parents of people I went to school with. There are people that are working with me, like Dorian went to school here, and Dorian works with me and runs our whole accredited network, which is just a huge venture. And other people that are even from SU are looking to even move back to Utah and come work in the different avenues and different firms that we're involved with. But one key lesson I've learned recently more than anything is when I have a business venture, whoever I bring into that business venture to partner with, I make sure that they bring more value than I have to offer in whatever area they're coming into. And as I've done that, I've seen a lot of my businesses grow and succeed. And the areas where I brought someone in to help fit a need or what I thought was going to be helpful, but they didn't have the right mindset, or they were just asking me all along, then those businesses didn't work to the same degree. Now the thing is, I still may have an expertise that they don't have that will be tons of value for the business. But what they bring is unique to that business. And there's businesses I have that I spend almost no time in month to month, and these are pretty sizable businesses at this point, that if I tried to spend, it's almost like if I tried to spend time in it, I'd probably mess it up at this point. They're doing a great job. And then as you continue to be a value creator, what you'll see is if you keep that mindset up, there's people I've wanted to meet my whole life, and I just wrote a list. Here's something to even do. Who are the people that you'd love to meet in this world that you haven't met yet? I wrote that list down. Last year, I think I met 8 or 9 people from that list. I mean, I'm thinking big. I'm thinking, here's someone I really like to meet. I've listened to their material. I've read a book from them, whatever it is. And then as soon as I found an opportunity to meet them, I made the call. I made the trip. I rearranged my schedule. And when I went, the very first thing I tried to do was create more value than anyone else had created in a first meeting with them. I remember I met a mentor in my life, someone that runs an entrepreneurial program. They've taught 30,000 people. To be in the program, you have to make $200,000 minimum. Most of the people in the program are $1 million and above. Huge influencer. If you look at some of the best-selling authors, they've been in this program. I mean, this guy's a total stud. I just said, I wonder what it would take. And we ran into him one day in Chicago when we were going through a course. He's like elusive, and you almost don't know he exists even though he owns the company. He's just a genius at creating these systems. And so immediately I just went up, introduced myself. I'd love to have lunch with you today. He said, great. Yeah, come have lunch. I went to have lunch. There was 50 people around him. So I made a phone call the next day, and I said, hey, I was scheduled to have lunch with Dan. It didn't seem to work out. Do you know the next time he's going to be in Chicago, or the next time we could sit down and have lunch? And I didn't get a call back, so we called again. And then finally got a lunch scheduled. When we sat down, I said, you know what? I noticed that you're looking to expand into Utah with your coaching program. I think that we could place a bunch of people in that program because it's created so much value for us. We had an event. They'd never done an event like this. We had 200 people show up. We're now in their top 3 in the entire nation for the number of referrals that send in. So we did a radio show together. We went out and we recorded a DVD together. They had me over to their house. They said, anytime you want coaching, just call. We'll give it to you personally. You got to create value first, though. And the thing is, you got to be willing to do something unreasonable, like say, I'm going to meet that person. And just write it down and find a way to make it happen. And when you see the opportunity, don't be afraid. Just make it happen. Sometimes you got to do what's uncomfortable in the moment. So get good people around you, and don't be afraid to share your ideas. That helpful? Cool. Any other questions? We've got a few minutes. Yeah.
How about a sneak peek of what one of those sacred cows would be?
A couple of the chapters. What I name the chapter is what the belief is, and then I dispel it. So it takes money to make money. That's one of the things that we're dispelling. It's all about the numbers. It's another thing. High risk equals high return. Just the concept of retirement. I'm going to have another book come out about that because I just touch on it in this. But I think it's amazing that there's so much information out there that says, if you want to retire, here's what you got to do. You got to plug in this equation and earn this rate of return, and then maybe you can live off 70% of your income, and you'll be in a lower tax bracket, and all these things. And I'm like, look, why is everyone analyzing all this? Because why don't you just find something that you love to do and forget about that concept? Why don't you find what it would take to get economic independence in the shortest period of time so you could choose what you want to do on a day-to-day basis? Professor Harrop doesn't have to be here. He could be retired. He retired a long time ago. In his mind, there was no amount of money that could buy him out of doing what he was passionate about and what he believed in. What an example to me at an early age to be able to have that actually watch that happen, then I can write about it. Because it wasn't just a philosophy. I saw it, and then I had someone to look up to and say, I've seen other people do it this way. Sure, maybe 99% of the population would have taken the other road, but that's why the other 99% isn't extraordinary. So, a lot of the things that I'm just dispelling is just the traditional beliefs around finance. And it's a lot of that traditional belief that's held people back, It's held them into captivity and bondage their whole life, thinking that one day something will be better. So there's 10 chapters, 10 different fallacies that we're basically destroying. And, the types of authors that will be unhappy with what we talk about would be the Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, who else? Pretty much most of the authors for CNBC that have to do with finance. Most of the firms that want to never have you utilize your money, they're not going to be overly happy. I'm prepared. I'm prepared to go on TV. I'm prepared to talk about it with the wealthiest people in the nation, whatever. That's where my belief is, So the thing is, if they understood what I understood, I'm telling people to use all that information, but to discern truth from falsehood and not just buy into fallacies. So you're still going to use the financial institutions. It just doesn't mean that, the best thing to do in your life is to set money aside in a 401k, just keep your eyes closed, and then 30 years from now you can get to it. I would start asking, is that really what you want? Are you comfortable with the amount of control the government has over that plan? Does the match really equal 100% rate of return? If it did, by the way, you'd become the GDP, right? If people earned 100% every single year, wouldn't they eventually have trillions of dollars, even if you started with a small amount? There's just so many fallacies. And more than anything, I don't want to tell people what to do, but I want them to at least question what they're currently doing and make sure it's what they really want to do and they're not just blindly following, just like sheep when they jump the yellow line in the road thinking that it's something they have to jump. Every sheep after it's jumping the yellow line. It's just paint on the asphalt. But I see tons of people do that in their lives, And there's a lot of misery out there. There's a lot of poverty thinking. There's a lack of self-reliance. There's a lot of consumers. And look at the few producers that there are, the small percentage, what greatness has come about because of that. Think about what we haven't tapped into because of people buying into the fallacy of scarcity. Any other questions? Yeah. In May. So you can go to killingsacredcows.com. That website won't be up until the end of the month. Or you can go to garrettbgunderson.com. And that Producer Revolution will sell that book too. Yeah.
You talk about unique ability.
Mm-hmm.
How would one find their unique ability?
There's a lot of ways to find it, but here's just a few strategies to help you find it. List all the activities that you do, and then go through and say which activities increased your energy, which ones were energy neutral, and which ones decreased your energy. That's going to be an insight. Go talk to the people that you know best and ask them, what do you think that I naturally do well? Because we discount what we naturally do well so often because we figure everyone else is good at it just because we are. Well, that's not the case at all. So go have those conversations. Then immerse yourself in study and introspection. Read books like The Prosperity Paradigm is a book that you can get through our organization. You can get the book Unique Ability at strategiccoach.com. You can get the book Now Discover Your Strengths in any Barnes & Noble. You can get, what other good books have I, there's just a lot of books that talk and go through this concept. There's a program called the Kolbe Index, Kolbe. Go take the Kolbe profile. That'll help you understand your conation, the things that you naturally do. I found that to be extraordinarily valuable. Meditate. I mean, that's some of the things you gotta, do certain things like that to start to find it, and then that'll be part of it. We have a whole program that we have called the Freedom Fast Track that helps people discover it, but it also deals with the financial part too. It's something that I've been writing for the last 9 years, and it just got launched in January, so it's pretty fun, pretty exciting. Some of the people that have partnered with me in it are people that I've looked up to for years and years, and now they're part of the program and I'm partnered with, so it's kind of fun to see some of those things coming about. One last question, if there is any. Yeah.
A lot of the principles that you pointed out are easy to recognize that they're true, but hard to apply in your life. Like what strategy do you have in helping to internalize the principles that you talked about?
Simple formula. Turn your brain on and fill it with good information. Read on a regular basis, listen to the right things, attend the right events, and I mean the right ones. There's a lot of reading out there that's not going to help. The second thing is associate with like-minded individuals, associate with other people that want prosperity in their life, that want to learn about principles, that want to apply principles. And then the third thing is start taking action. That's the easiest formula to start doing that. And what you'll find is when things don't work, you need to go evaluate that and say, where wasn't I aligned with principle? What could I learn from that situation? And when things do work, say, what was the principle there? But if you really want to start immediately, join the Producer Revolution. It's $30 a month, and even if you're a college student, whatever you're paying for books and tuition and all that kind of stuff, $30 a month is going to teach you how to do some of these things if you're willing to do it.
Does Producer Revolution have offices all over the country?
I'm actually going to speak at a Producer Revolution event here in Cedar City we're launching tonight. So it has a local forum every Thursday night. It's all, there's a virtual forum, so even if you're gone, you're in any part of the nation, we have some leaders of a virtual forum that you can listen to it on the web every Thursday night. You get mailed a producer interview. It's a CD once a month that shares stories of very successful individuals. I would like to commit you to do one with me, Steve. I want you to do a producer interview with me. That would be great.
Is that tonight on the hill?
I don't know where it is. Yeah, I think so. So, there's a Revolutionist newsletter that comes out. There's a daily email that's part of it. There's radio archives with all the radio shows. That's all just part of the membership, so it doesn't really matter where you live. You have access to all that. All right. Well,
Sorry,
that's okay.
you've been talking about producers and
Consumers.
consumers. In your opinion, what percentage?
This is my loose opinion. I haven't done all the research or anything like that. I'd say 5% of people in our nation are producers, 15% have one foot in, one foot out, and it just depends on what's going on, and the other 80% are consumers.